Hello everyone, my name's Wayne Westacott with the Education Welfare Service. I have with me Julie Jarman.
Hello.
So today, a quick snappy video just to bring you all up to speed with regard to the new DfE guidance on attendance that's coming in this September, so September 2023. So this is going to be the first video update where we'll be sharing with you our progress as a local authority and just sharing with you our journey as we get ready for September 2023 and the changes that are imminent upon us all. So the aims of this session, firstly, to understand the new DfE guidance and the expectations that that guidance puts onto schools and local authorities. If you've not seen the guidance came out back in April and you really need to be looking at it. It's significant, the changes are significant, and it's going to alter the way that local authorities and schools manage attendance. Secondly, to understand the notion that, like safeguarding, attendance is actually everyone's responsibility and everyone can play a massive part in helping these children and supporting these children with their school attendance. Mainly, this session is about getting schools ready for September 2023. Okay, so it's about informing you so that you're aware of what is around the corner.
What the guidance says. Like Wayne said, it was published earlier on in the year, and there are three main areas for everybody. So that's schools and governing bodies, local authorities, and any educational partners that work with young people. So it is up to everybody. The three areas are preventing patterns of absence by promoting a good attendance. So we have to set our expectations really high around that. And that's everybody. That's every service that work with young people. So that's whether that's us as an education welfare service or schools or early help or communication and interaction. Everybody needs to set that expectation at the beginning. To help prevent those patterns. Then we need to be thinking about intervening really early by using our data. So it's about schools and local authority spotting patterns of absence with young people. And before it becomes persistent, we need to be working with those families to remove those barriers to attendance. And if that doesn't work with kind of working locally in your schools, it's about providing targeted support. Targeted support again is with the schools need to engage with that, promote that, and making sure that they include early help services or any other services that can support that family to help them re-engage. Now, the targeted support is for persistent and severe absentees. We all know, most of us know around persistent absentees, but severe absentees will be a new term for most of you. And we abbreviate it to SA, and that's for pupils that have 50% attendance or less. And we really need to be concentrating on those. So who's the guidance for? As I said previously, it's for everybody in a school, academy trust schools, head teachers, governors, and alternative provision providers. It also includes independent schools for the first time. It's for all local authority attendance staff, early help lead practitioners, social workers, anybody that's working with young people. And then we've got the statutory safeguarding around the guidance as well, and that's obviously including the police and any integrated care boards, so that's social services. And the guidance is also for parent and carers, so we're really clear on who's expected to do what. So this has just changed recently, so it shows that the local authority have a real drive to supporting our young people to thriving in education every day. And at the core about that is it's making it really clear that it's everyone's business within a school and outside of school that work with young people, but it's also about our relationships that we have with our children in schools and working and a relational practice that we kind of start engaging them and helping them feel belonging in schools. And then it's also part of that is working out whether we need to be thinking about developing alternative routes through education within our settings and working with our young people.
Okay, so the guidance talks about certain areas of expectations, actions schools and partners and local authorities can be exploring and thinking about taking. So one of the key things for schools is communication. Yeah, being able to communicate clearly and consistently, really drilling home those expectations around attendance. You know, what is expected from that pupil, what's expected from that family with regard to that child's attendance. So good, clear communication, consistent communication, basically underlying that point that attendance is really important, every day matters, and that child should be in school every day that school opens its door to them. So communicating clearly, super important. Identification, again, as Julie said earlier on, it's about identifying the pupils who are at risk, identifying the pupils who are reluctant or anxious to attend, identifying pupils early, because the earlier you get at them, the earlier it is, the easier it is even to turn them around and get them back attending better. The longer they're out, the more entrenched they become, the more it becomes habitual. So the easiest thing to do is to break those habits as early as possible. Next, action. So actually doing stuff that's going to make a difference to support that child in attending better. So what measures can be put in place for those families and those pupils? What additional support is there to support that child in getting back into school? What barriers are there and how can they be removed? What needs to happen to secure regular attendance for that child? Next, working closely with other professionals, other agencies, local service providers as appropriate. The whole point of that is about bringing people around that family, multi-agency, working with that family, with that pupil, to bring down those barriers, to mitigate those barriers of things that are stopping that child from attending school regularly. And of course, if the child's got a social worker, then they need to be involved in the process as well. Listen, understand, empathise and support. So Ofsted and the DFE are very clear now over their expectations that we need to be engaging with these families, we need to be engaging with these pupils as soon as we possibly can. We need to be listening to them, we need to be understanding what's going on, understanding what those barriers are and empathising. Yeah, so in short, we're working closely in partnership with these families to bring about the improvement to that child's attendance. Okay, so we're working with the families, but we're not tolerating poor attendance. We're working to improve it. So the guidance talks about 6 key areas that partners should work together towards. So number 1, expect. Aspire to high standards of attendance from all pupils. Schools working with families and other external agencies or providers to develop a culture where all pupils feel safe and want to attend school and want to attend regularly. The research shows us that if children value attendance, value their education, value their curriculum, and they feel safe, then they're a lot more likely to regularly attend. So schools need to be thinking about what helps those pupils feel safe and what helps them want to attend regularly. So schools should ensure that attendance is prioritised across all areas of school life. Again, just like safeguarding. Monitor. So schools are expected to rigorously use attendance data to support the early identification of patterns of poor attendance. Now, this can be done at both an individual level, pupil level, and also at cohort level. So year groups, disadvantaged groups, across all levels of data. So good data allows parties to work together to resolve barriers before they become entrenched. Data, good data, again, is the backbone of the operation. It tells you who you need to work with. Listen and understand. I touched on this before. So again, it's about actively engaging with the family, actively engaging with the pupil, finding out what's going wrong. Listening to families, listening to pupils, understanding, empathizing. Yeah, so again, good communication. What's going on with that child? Why are they not coming into school? What can be done? Facilitating support. So schools need to be looking at removing barriers. Okay, and those barriers are sometimes in school. So it may be looking at curriculum, it may be looking at lessons, it may be looking at what's going on in those lessons, but basically looking at what's getting in the way for that child, yeah, and how whatever is in the way can be removed. So looking at barriers that may occur within the school, but also outside of the school. So it could include referrals to early help, could involve referrals to medical CAMHS. It may be that there's a need for a whole family plan. It may be a referral to social care. But basically what's going on and what needs to happen to bring about the changes that are needed. Formalising support. Basically, local authorities need to have in place the means to be able to formalise with families the need for them to engage with what's being offered. So we're looking to support families, but actually they've got their part to play in the process too. And that requires them to engage with what's being offered and to work towards getting the child back into school and attending regularly. And finally, enforcement. So where all avenues have been exhausted, where the school's done everything that it reasonably can and all appropriate support has been offered, and that support is not working or not being engaged with, then the local authority has to have in place a system to offer challenge. Okay, and the local authority can do that through statutory intervention, basically through prosecution and the legal process.
So the expectations on the local authorities is not all about what schools are doing, it's expectation on us. So, it covers every service, as I said previously. So in general terms, support first, and everybody needs to have focus as attendance when they're working with young people, putting plans in place and discussing any concerns that the young person might have under SEN or EHCPs or any support they need. Attendance needs to be a focus of any work that they do. And also we as a local authority need to be measuring the impact of any support and plans that schools or any other services have put in place to support that family to help remove the barriers. So everybody needs to be doing that themselves, but also we need to be doing that too. What was the impact of that piece of work? And then kind of looking at that work and seeing whether we need to adjust it. So nothing's set in stone when we review with families, and schools need to be going, okay, what did work, what worked well, what didn't work so well, and what do we need to change? So the local authority is kind of almost the facilitator of wider support around Devon, and looking at what's been put in place already. So we'll be communicating with schools and advising the schools and sharing best practice between everybody about what's worked best in the local area and what additional support is out there. We'll also be looking at targeted support meetings. So that's holding those termly conversations with schools, as Wayne said previously, around data. Be looking at the data of the schools, data of those individual pupils. So yes, we'll look at your overarching data for your school, but what we're more interested in, and what everybody else will be interested in, is those individual pupils. What's happening for them? What plans are in place to support them and help them remove those barriers? So those targeted support meetings with the local authority will be discussing the attendance data about individual pupils. And of course, cohorts go alongside that, but the ones that are at risk from poor attendance, and agreeing those targeted actions alongside those families. Multidisciplinary support for families. So that's again all our partners, early help, any other partners outside of early help, health, police, everybody working together to provide access to support for those families to help identify and remove those barriers, and kind of within that working out who the best placed person is to work with that family and communicate with them. And of course, as Wayne said previously on the last slide, what we do have, in our back pocket is legal intervention. So we won't use that as our first decision when we're looking at families and young people not attending, and it will always be as a last resort. But it will mean that we do have it there. So we will still enforce legal intervention for parents under the parental responsibility. However, it will be a last resort, and we need to make sure those support plans are in place. Next slide. So I've taken this directly from the guidance. So the first two columns are what the guidance says, what needs to be in place for effective school attendance improvement and management. And the first thing, the most important thing really, is prevention. Prevention of poor attendance. Let's, be open and transparent to our parents and to any other school staff and people outside of school what your expectations are around young people attending school. And it's about developing those really good attendance patterns right from reception when they start attending school right through to year 11, and being really clear to everybody what your school expectations are. Prevention is far easier than trying to cure it afterwards. And then looking at early intervention, so all partners need to be intervening really early when there's a risk of poor attendance. And then agreeing an action plan if necessary. Sometimes just having that relational practice with parents or young people will bring about the change that you need, but that needs to be done at a much earlier stage rather than waiting until it's becoming a problem. And then if it does continue to become a problem, it's putting in that targeted support. So that's come straight from the guidance. So what we've added to that here is the local authority responsibilities around that. So we'll be looking, we'll be having a named contact for each school. So around attendance, so the school members of staff, anybody able to contact them and ask advice and support and any questions they may have. We'll be given, as a local authority, opportunities for all schools to share effective practice in your local areas, because all local areas work slightly differently in what they can offer young people, and providing advice and training as well for the schools. On top of that, the local authority will be offering those termly conversations around the data of those individual young people, and facilitating early help where appropriate, and identifying area-wide concerns that need to be discussed. And again, we've got PA and SA, so that's our severe absentees again, and providing formal support options. So targeted support that the school and any other support services need to put in place, but the local authority will also assist with that, and then taking it through to legal action if it's absolutely necessary.
Okay, so in short, from September 2023, we're going to start to see a change of focus from the local authority. So the local authority's work will be heavy at the beginning of the attendance journey. So that prevention side of things, so guidance, advice, and making sure that schools have adequate training. And then also at the end of the journey, the legal intervention and supporting schools with the legal process and challenge and support. The real difference is going to be in the middle part, where schools are going to be expected to be more self-reliant. So the early intervention, the targeted intervention, those are areas where schools need to get good. They need to get good at having good conversations with parents, at breaking down the barriers to why that child's not attending and putting in place good action plans. So right now, what schools can do in readiness for those changes in September is to be thinking about these three key areas. So data, I said before, and I'll say it again, data is super important. Yeah, it is the backbone of your operation. It drives your operation. It informs you and the decisions that you make. You need to have good data and good data processes, and you need to be able to get at that data quick so that you can use it to advantage and you can apply it early interventions, what it's all about. If you've not already signed up to it, then you need to be signing up to the DFE WAND. That's spelt wrong on there. I think it's WONDE. That's my fault. I take blame for that. But you need to be signing up to that on the DFE WAND. Okay, so that is actually a DFE attendance management system that will link your school up with the DFE. So it'll mean that there'll be a quicker transmission of information back and forth. So it's good news for you because it means that there'll be all sorts of tools on there for you to help your school manage your data. So like I say, if you haven't done that, you need to be getting onto that as soon as possible, really. Certainly that's our advice. So data, sign up to WAND and think about the data that you already have. Yeah, do you have good quality pupil and school level data? If not, then that's an area that you need to be exploring and looking at improving upon. Second area that you need to be looking at and thinking about is policy. Your attendance policy is, again, really, really important. If we go back a few years to the Isle of Wight case around term time holidays, then the Supreme Court decided that regular attendance is according to the school rules. So where do you find the school rules? In your policy. So if you want to be prosecuted, if you want to be running an efficient attendance management process, procedure, system, you need to have a good policy. The policy needs to be clearly written, well publicized. It needs to be on your website. It needs to be available to parents, staff, pupils, everyone. Okay, so you need to have a good policy, clearly written, well publicized. It must be explicit with your expectations with regard to attendance and punctuality, because again, these are your school rules. And you also need to detail how you as a school will manage pupil absence. So far that's data, that's policy. The third area you need to be thinking about is how you're actually going to manage attendance within your school. You should have a set of processes that guide how you manage pupil attendance in your school. You need to be having a process for penalty notices so that when parents take term time holidays and they are unauthorized, that you can challenge them. So if you've not got a system in place for that, then that's something that you need to be looking at ASAP. And you also need to be thinking about how you are escalating pupil, your challenge and your support to poor pupil attendance, full stop. So basically you need to have a nice, clearly stated escalation process for how you manage that pupil's attendance through your school. Yeah, so it could be a system of letters and meetings. So you need to be thinking about how within your school you are going to manage that attendance process. They're the three key areas that you need to be thinking about right now. This website here and these videos will be a regular occurrence. We'll be bringing these videos probably half-termly to keep you up to date with where we are as a local authority in moving towards preparedness for September 2023. So keep an eye on the website, keep an eye out here on this website for these videos and these updates, because they're going to be really useful to you and your school as we get closer and closer to September 2023. And I think that's all I have to say on the matter. Oh, Julie, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, can I just say about the DFE1 data sharing? Once you've signed up, and then it will automatically, the DFE will automatically just take your attendance information, so it doesn't give you any more extra work to send. And I think the DFE are hoping it's going to replace any other attendance data collection eventually. So that's what their expectation is. So the sooner you sign up and the sooner we get used to working with the system, the better. And as part of that guidance as well, it also expects you to work with and monitor your data against other schools locally to you. So that gives you the opportunity to see data from other schools in your localities. So definitely a thing to sign up to save any issues later. And the other thing I wanted to say about attendance policy, there is a model policy on the local authority website that you can have a look at, which incorporates everything that the new guidance is expecting you to include in there and to be actioned in your schools.
Brilliant.
That's
okay,
it.
so I think all that leaves is for us to say thank you for listening. And like I said, keep an eye out on the website and this area in particular, because we will be updating regularly. So thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next update.
Thank you.